Hello, welcome back. Well, we've talked about rescue dogs. We've talked about how they become trained to be rescue dogs. Now let's look at what these dogs do, these rescue dogs do in action, right? What are some of the things they do? So rescue dogs in action, what are the things that they do? Rescue dogs help save lives all over the world, right? So that's interesting because dogs, everybody in every country knows the value of dogs. It means that dogs are valuable. They are important everywhere. Everybody knows that dogs can help people. So they save lives all over the world. They help after earthquakes and fires. Before I taught you the word disaster, different types of disasters, I said maybe there's a fire, a tsunami is a disaster. When a lot of snow comes down, right? That's a disaster. This is a type of disaster. There's another one here. We'll get to that. An earthquake is a type of disaster when the earth moves suddenly. Sounds strange, right? You might be walking along, all of a sudden the earth is moving. Japan, unfortunately, has earthquakes. If you live in Japan, you've probably felt an earthquake. Thankfully, in Korea, you don't have, I've never experienced an earthquake in Korea. Korea doesn't really have earthquakes. Whew, could. But, it just depends on where you live. It's just when the earth moves suddenly, and of course, buildings can fall down, right? The ground can open up. There can be holes in the ground. So this is a very dangerous situation. Dogs can help after earthquakes and fires. They help after avalanches too. Avalanche. This is a word. Remember when I gave you the example? Imagine in the wintertime, there's a lot of snow in the mountains. Sometimes that snow comes falling down the mountain, a lot of snow. And if you're caught, you might be buried in the snow. That is an avalanche, okay? But avalanches aren't just snow. Sometimes, especially in mountains that are very tall and very steep, sometimes if it rains, a lot of mud will come down, or dirt or rocks will come down. That's also an avalanche. So avalanche can be snow, it can be mud, it can be rocks or earth, right? So if this happens, you might get buried. People might get buried in their cars. They might get buried in buildings. Or in the snow, if you're skiing, you just might get buried by yourself. So dogs can help find you. Dogs are part of mountain rescue teams. Of course, in the mountains, if you go in the mountains, mountains are a very difficult country, right? You can get lost in the mountains. Avalanches happen in the mountains. People get lost in the mountains. So dogs are part of mountain rescue teams. They are part of many teams, not just mountain teams, but many teams. We saw before there's a dog learning to rescue people at sea. So that's another type of team. Rescue dogs do a good job. They do a good job because they want to do a good job. They want to work with people. They want to find people. They do a good job and they have a very good sense of smell. So here we see a picture of a firefighter. This is a firefighter, and he's going into a dangerous place, a difficult place. He's using a rope, and he's got his dog with him because his dog will help find or rescue some people. So that's an important job. It does a good job. Here's another example. Remember I said an earthquake, sometimes buildings will fall down. So this building was destroyed by an earthquake. It fell down. There might be people inside here. So this is an earthquake rescue team. Here we see the woman here. She's trained. She knows how to help people, but she has to find that person. She can't find that person because she can't smell them very well. She can't see them. She can't hear them very well. But the dog can smell them very well. Remember, dogs have a very good sense of smell. So the dog will find the people and she will rescue that person. Here, this is the military. This man is a soldier. He's a soldier in an army, right? And here is a dog here that helps him out. This is an army rescue team. Of course, soldiers have a very dangerous job. They're in very dangerous places. Sometimes if they get hurt, they cannot call for help. So a military or army rescue team will find that person and save them, rescue them. Okay? Or they'll save other people too. They can also save civilians after some terrible accident or something that happened. Okay, so these are rescue dogs in action. We see many different examples of rescue dogs in action. Okay, here we have our glossary again. These are the important words that we learned. These are good words to remember, and these are the words that we learned in this story. Let's go over them. First, we have avalanche. Do you remember this word? Avalanche. Avalanche. An avalanche, of course, is a large snowslide in the mountains. It says snowslide here, but remember, it's not just snow. It can be mud, it can be rocks, it can be dirt. But usually when people talk about avalanche, they're talking about the winter and the snow. Especially for skiers, it can be dangerous. Okay? Disaster. We talked about disaster, and we saw different types of disasters, right? A disaster is an accident that causes damage and can harm people. So it's a terrible event that may cause damage. It can cause a building to fall down. It can cause something to burn, right? It can cause an area to be covered in water. These are disasters, and they can harm people. An earthquake is a type of disaster. It is a type of disaster. In an earthquake, a sudden shaking of the ground, which often causes damage, especially in towns and cities where there are tall buildings or there are bridges, right? This can cause damage. It's a sudden shaking of the ground. At the beginning of our book, we talked about a handler. Remember, a handler is like a trainer, somebody who trains somebody to do something. A person who trains and works with a rescue dog. In this case, that's the handler, right? But there are other kinds of handlers. Dog handlers, elephant handlers, horse handlers, and these people train the animals to do something. Obey. We talked about that word, obey. Remember, it's important for us to obey other people, right? It's important for us to obey our teachers, our parents, but it's also important for animals to obey us. Even if it's just a pet, even if it's not a working dog, the dog should obey us. It should sit, it should stay, it should not bark, right? So we have to train the dogs. We have to train the dog to obey us. An obstacle. We talked about obstacle. An obstacle is something that's in your way. You have to get over it or around it or under it. An object that is in the way. It's in the way. I want to go here, but there's something in my way. That's an obstacle. Finally, we had this word here, training. Training is learning something new. To learn something new. It's usually a skill. It's how to do something, right? Remember, you go to school, you're not really in training. You're learning knowledge. You're learning about books. You're learning how to read. You're training to read. That's one thing that you're learning. You're learning a skill. So you do get trained in school also. But you're also learning knowledge, which isn't really training. Training is more specifically to learn how to do something. So when you learn how to read, that's training, right? But if you learn about the capitals of the world, that's not training, that's just remembering information. So there's a little bit different between learning knowledge and learning a skill. Learning a skill has to do with training, learning something new, learning how to do something. Okay? So, we didn't really do any training in this. See, we're not training here. We're just learning. We are learning something new, though. We're learning about rescue dogs, and we're learning about how dogs can help us, right? Dogs are great animals. They're a lot of fun. They're a lot of fun to have as a part of your family, right? You love them, they love you. Take good care of them. But remember, dogs are also special. They can do very important jobs to help people all over the world. So, interesting lesson. Hope you learned a lot. We'll see you next time. Take care.